All right. Doris, don't be mad at me, but I changed the sermon. So the title and the verse isn't what we're doing today, right? And that what didn't happen until about 4:15 this morning. I got up this morning, I'm like, God was telling me yesterday, but I was like, we'll include something about that. But man, I got this, we've been working on the new covenant and we're finally there. And it wasn't today. So I got up about 4:15, drank some coffee, prayed about it. And God even told me, third person, Melissa told me, hey, maybe you should include this instead. And I'm like, I'll do something about that. I'll include that at the beginning. We'll do a little talk. It'll be half and half. And God said no. So I got up this morning, drank coffee, kicked the dogs out, and started typing my notes, because I like to have notes. I almost just came in here and did it. But I like to have a guideline. And again, like I said, it keeps me on track time-wise. Because if you let me up here and just start talking about Scripture, we might be here till tomorrow. And I don't have a problem with that, but some of y'all get hungry. All right. So today we'll be in 1 Corinthians chapter 13. Love. Seems like an appropriate thing. We, day after Valentines, so it's still Valentine's weekend. It's a good day to talk about love. Right? So Paul is the author of Corinthians, 1 and 2, both of them. And it's a letter to the church of Corinth. And he wrote it to motivate the church of Corinth. So if you would go to chapter 13, we're going to start off with 1 through 3. In my Bible, I didn't check other translations, even though I usually do. Like I said, I started this sermon probably about 4:45 this morning. After I got awoke a little bit, prayed a little bit, coffee, kicked dogs out. So I didn't have a chance, and I've read it in other translations, but I've never paid much attention to the title of this chapter. The title in mine, which is a Christian Standard Bible, it says, Love the Superior Way, which is true. And I say it quite often. I throw it in there any chance I get. Verse 1 through 3. If I speak human or angelic tongues, but do not have love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so that I can move mountains but do not have love, I am nothing. And if I give away all my possessions, and if I give over my body in order to boast but do not have love, I gain nothing. When you narrow it down, Paul's saying, without love, any gift you have or give, any spiritual gifts you have, means nothing. Spiritual gifts are given to us to glorify God and to reach others, to save the unbelievers, to strengthen the church, to use to disciple the new believer, to inspire the seasoned believer, and to glorify God. If love is absent out of any of that, any of what you're doing, no matter how amazing your spiritual gift is, it does not edify. It simply makes noise. Paul says it right there. He is a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. Anybody in high school band or junior high band? I was, right? Those percussionists, when they hit the gong, when they hit the cymbal, just out of spite, it's annoying. It is an annoyance, right? Speaking, our TV's been a little bit on the fritz here recently, right? When it hits certain octaves or sounds, it makes this loud screeching sound. To me, this is a good demonstration of our gifts. Without love, we're still watching. We can possibly hear what they're saying on the TV, but that screeching sound becomes overwhelming, and what we're watching is pointless. We usually have to try to change it, turn it down, do something. Paul is saying that our spiritual gift, without love for your fellow man, is just like that screeching noise on my TV. We're still watching. The movie's still going. The series is still going. But it's very hard to pay attention to. We're not getting the point, the clarification of what's going on. Verses 4 through 7, please. We're going to get to that in a second. I want to talk about what does love look like. And Paul tells us that in 4 through 7. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love does not envy. It is not boastful, not arrogant. It is not rude. It is not self-seeking. It is not irritable and does not keep a record of wrongs. Love finds no joy in unrighteousness, but rejoices in the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endure all things. You know, I've heard a lot in my life. I can't help that I love them. Love isn't just a feeling. In fact, the priority of love is not the feeling. Biblical love is a decision. To love your neighbor, to love the ones that have done you wrong, love the ones you do not know, love the ones that are dirty, that are filthy, that are in prison, love the ones that aren't living a life that you agree with. That's a decision. That is a decision. That is biblical love. That is the love we're talking about right now. To compassionately, out of a sincere care for another, righteously based on the standards set forth by a Father and His Word. If you want to know what love is, read the Bible. Sacrificially giving of what we have, whether it's a material good, money, time, etc., while seeking the well-being of another, and we're doing this for the glorification of God, not us. Paul notes several characteristics of love and what love is and what love is not in these scriptures. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not boastful. Love is not envious. Love is not arrogant. Love is not irritable. Love is not rude. Love is not self-seeking. Love does not keep a record of wrongdoing. That is a lot of is nots. All those is nots can be simplified by what I said earlier, while seeking the well-being of others. We cannot serve others to glorify us. And I'm sure I'm positive I've done the same myself. Well, this will make me look good, so I'm going to go over here and do this. That's not love. That's ego. That's me trying to glorify me, not me trying to glorify God. We cannot serve others to glorify us. We must serve others to help them and glorify God. This is only possible when we put others before us, which I'm telling you from experience is hard. It is hard, but it becomes a habit because you make a decision, right? Verse 6. Love finds no joy in unrighteousness, but rejoices in the truth. We cannot find joy in the sin. So loving someone isn't accepting their behavior. Loving someone is not accepting their lifestyle. I can love somebody who is sinning. We're all sinning. I can love someone who maybe in my man nature says their sin is worse than mine. I still love them. Doesn't mean we have to accept what they're doing. We do not enforce sin because we love. Love is celebrating the sinner, not the sin. On other terms, we are to love the sinner. We're not to love the sin. Instead, we are to lift up the sinner. Rejoice when they come to the Father. Support them in the pursuit of righteousness. Not criticize them for what they struggle with. We all struggle with something. And again, this does not mean we condone their sin. In verse 7, love does not quit. It says it bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. If we love, we do not stop loving. Our Father has given us unconditional love. We are to practice the same. It's hard. The reason I preach this is because it's hard and because I've gone through it. Verses 8 through 10, please. Love never ends, but as for prophecies, they will come to an end. As for tongues, they will cease. As for knowledge, hold on, pages sticking together. Comes to an end. For we know in part, I might have jumped ahead. All right. Now, there we are. For we know in part and we prophesy in part, but when the perfect comes, the partial will come to an end. Our spiritual gifts will come to an end one way or another. When our Lord, our Savior returns, then we know all of our spiritual gifts will come to an end. I'll talk about that a little bit. As we mature spiritually, our seasons change. As our seasons change, it is quite possible our spiritual gifts will change with the season. God will provide the gift you need for the season you're in. Think of it this way. And again, I was a police officer, so this is the best example I got. When I was a police officer, I started off as a rookie. I needed my hand held, right? Someone had to sit in the car with me, make sure I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Even though they send you through 6 months of training, you get 6 months of babysitting. And it's needed, trust me. As someone who's ran 3 shifts of a police department, it's needed, hand holding. So while you're there, you develop skills. Sometimes skills are developed stronger than others. So let's say I'm good at catching speeders, right? So my skill is catching speeders. As I gained experience, other skills, other gifts, I was still good at catching speeders, but they became less important as I matured as a police officer. These other skills for me were finding those transporting illegal narcotics. That became a focus. So that didn't take away my gift of catching speeders, but my season changed. And now my gift as a police officer was finding people who were trafficking, distributing narcotics. Then I became a canine handler. We still find speeders, found a lot more drugs, right? But now my gift was working with a dog. I was pretty good at it, if I do say so myself. I had the results to prove it. It's not just me bragging. If we go back and look at my records, I had the results to prove that my dog was pretty good at it. I just held the leash. Side story, the last time I did a certifier exam, you have to certify every year with the canine to show that you're still working with the dog can still do what it's supposed to be doing, and that you're not just plain, dog handler. So I always went to the hardest certifier in the state of Oklahoma. A gentleman by the name of David. He was an Oklahoma City police officer. Ironically enough, he was also a Pentecostal preacher, but he preached with snakes. Not even going to touch on that. He had the snakes, right? At least that's what he said. I never actually went to his church. Didn't want to find out. Snakes, not my thing. Not my thing, right? He was known as the hardest one to test under. So I went to him every year because if I'm going to be a canine handler and I want to stand in front of a jury and stand swearing an oath saying I did the best of my ability with the judge, I wanted to make sure I had more than me as evidence that I did my best. So if someone has a reputation of being the hardest one to certify under, that's who I went to. Right? We failed the first time. So you know what I did? Because I'm bold. I said, when do you train your dogs? I got myself invited to training. So I started training my dog with him. So basically, I was receiving training again, how to train the dog. Right? New gift. Now I can train dogs. You ever want your dog to find narcotics? Let me know. We'll work out a training plan. The first time we did it, she embarrassed me. I went in there, he said, okay, let's see what we can do. Large amounts. Which, believe it or not, large amounts, small amounts, the dogs detect them differently. So not the topic today. Large amounts. She went to everything but the drugs. I was embarrassed. We got through that, though, and she became, because I was gifted. God said, okay, the season's changing. You need to be a canine handler. Right? I was new gift, new season. I know it's not exactly on the spiritual nature, but it's a good example of what I'm talking about. Your seasons change. And with those seasons, you don't necessarily lose your previous gift, but you get different ones that belong in your season. So I can still catch speeders. I can still find narcotics on my own without the dog. In fact, one of my officers made a joke, why they even spend money on a dog for you? You catch drugs every day. I'm like, well, now, I got to back up to bite people, chase people. Not my point. So, the last day, because I had this new gift for this new season, the last time I had to certify the dog before I transitioned to another season, I walked in and let go of the leash. Took her off, threw it around my shoulder. Walked, told the dog what to do. And the dog showed me she did her job. Every step of the way to the point. His name was David Rivers, now that I'm thinking about it. David said, Mike, I got a whole line of people and I got a reputation to keep. Will you at least make it look like you're trying? Because he didn't want people to think it was simple. But for me, because I had a gift that had developed within that season, I made it look easy. Everybody with me on this? So your gifts can change. Gifts are temporary. You know what's not temporary is the love I had for that job. It wasn't at that point through those seasons. Eventually, that changed because God said it's time for a new season. Right? So I can still find speeders, still find narcotics, but now I can catch people that are running from me easily. No one ran. I used to have people run all the time. Because, look at that big guy, I'm going to outrun him. What they forget is I'm persistent. What they didn't know is I was persistent. I may not run faster, but I'm going to run further. So I very rarely, the only time I had someone outrun me is little 13-year-old skinny kids. They're about that wide, and they ducked under the old Jenny 8-foot barbed wire gate, and I wasn't fitting. Right? So they got away that way, but no one ever who ran got away from me because I didn't stop. But they quit running. It's amazing when you show up with a dog, they're like, I even had them. They get on the car, you have them step out, and you go pat search them, and they're doing this and looking around. I'd been a police officer long enough to know they're trying to figure out which way to run. And I'd done bounty hunting and all that other stuff, so I knew what they were doing. And all I had to say, my dog runs faster. And they turn around and look, see I have canine on my uniform. Right? They quit. This little nervous looking around like they're thinking about if they're going to run or fight or comply turns into... So there's drugs in the car. And I'm like, you don't say. They relax, they've accepted. And then I was promoted to patrol sergeant. I was over all shifts. I can still do everything else I was doing, but my gifts were no longer my focus. I had a new focus, and that was leading, teaching others to do what I was doing, which was one of the hardest things I had to do was turn that dog over. Because I spent 40-something hours a week with that dog, not counting training. That's just at work. And now you want me to teach someone else how to be friends with that dog? Because she'd bite anybody. She didn't like people. She only liked me. She made it perfect. I'm not going to lie, I was working a lot of hours. I'd fall asleep in the police car, right, sometimes. Anybody come within 15 feet of the car, she was growling and barking and snarling. I had my own little built-in alarm clock. But that happens. Okay, so the reason I tell you all this, it's like, a lot like spiritual growth, spiritual maturity. As you mature, so as you're no longer a rookie, a little baby Christian, and you become an adult Christian, right? Your seasons change. Your spiritual gifts may change. God will have another purpose. God may have promotion. God may have lateral transfer, right? But the love we have and that we are to have for mankind will not. It is to be constant. In fact, if you want to change seasons, if you want to grow up and spiritually mature, the love has to be constant. I know I've spoke a lot about being a police officer. I'm going to do it one more time. I think only one more time. We'll see what happens. Right? After years and years of doing this, if you can imagine, I grew kind of hard, kind of cold-hearted, kind of callous. And I've spoken of this before, towards other people, specifically towards people who victimized other people. We have a lot of homeless drug addicts in the area I was working. A lot of drug addicts that had homes, but they looked like, just like they weren't homes. I'll be polite. So, and I was always dealing, they stole the kid's bike, right? Stole that guy's lawnmower, broke into that house, That house had someone move out, so the landlord was rebuilding it for the next tenant. And another homeless drug addict broke in, stole the stove, took all the copper out of AC, took a nap, used a potty, did everything to destroy that house. Not because they were trying to destroy the house, but because they're a homeless drug addict, and that's just sometimes what they do. At some point, I quit picking on them, but we'll get to that. I used to constantly harass them. Harass them. What are you doing in my neighborhood kind of attitude. Anybody ever see the old Rambo? I've done that. Get in the car, I'm dropping you off somewhere else. You're like, but I don't want to go somewhere else. Well, you are. The difference between Rambo and me, the guys I was dealing with, is they actually had drugs and warrants. Take them to jail, they just come right back. Take them to 7-Eleven next town over. They decide they're really not wanted. Now, I'm not saying that was wrong or right, but I'm saying that's what I did. But you know what I had forgotten? My job wasn't to judge sins. My job as a Christian, my job as a police officer, it wasn't to judge. It wasn't to look at someone and say they don't belong here. Now, of course, that's maybe a necessary thing to do when they might be potentially breaking in, so you still make contact with them, but there was a different way I could have done it. Instead of coming to them with the spirit of this guy is worthless and victimizing someone and we need to get rid of him, I had to learn a different spirit. So God gave me my Valentine, my beautiful wife, Melissa, and she reminded me. She used to ride in the police car with me, sometimes for an hour, sometimes hours at a time. And she'd see this. One time I got back in the car, probably more than once, and she chewed me out. Why were you mean to him? That wasn't necessary. You could have done your job without being mean. I'm like, well, he was stealing that kid's bicycle. She's like, okay, we got the bike back. Why were you mean? He's one of God's people, whether we like it or not, And I'm going, but that child, you got his bicycle stolen. So I had to wrestle with that a little bit. And that reminded me that all people, she reminded me, are spiritually made in the image of God. And we are to love all of them regardless. So this led me to having to make a choice. And I made that choice. Again, love can be a decision. Love is a decision. Even if you have the feelings, the love for your sweetheart, you're married long enough, you have to choose to stay in love with them. Luckily, I had the best wife ever, so I don't have to make that choice. I love her every morning. Right? I had to go out of my way, out of my own finances, my own sacrifice, and I didn't have much. Still don't. I still do go out of my way because God provides. To show love for those I looked upon bluntly at the time as parasites. So here I am to change my own spirit, God had to change my spirit, but to open myself to that change, I had to make a decision to love mankind regardless. So I did. I started buying Bibles, handing them out. Started handing out water when it's cold out. Started doing things when they needed help doing something. Something as simple, hey, I need to make a phone call. I don't know where to go. I used to be like, well, what do you need to make a call for? What do you do about that? And they'd give you a bunch of lies and nonsense. Now, at this point, I'm going, okay, I can help you with that. You need to make a phone call, let's go to the PD. None of my business why. They were asking for help. Hopefully they weren't silly enough to make a drug deal, but you never know. There might have been drug deals made on my police officer phone, and that was none of my business. God said, help them. Show them love. So as I started doing these things, started serving, we handed out clothes. We've handed out a bunch of clothes. We have fed people, not just the homeless. It's bled into things we were doing with the dojo. We started doing more. Handing out Thanksgiving dinners, Christmas dinners. Handing out all sorts, endless things. Having bigger, things became great. I became happier when I started serving instead of looking at them as parasites. Don't get me wrong, I still arrested them when they needed arrested. I still did my job. I still served the people that were victimized. But I started treating the others differently. And I started feeling love for them, not hate, because I made a decision and intentionally went after it. When I did, I grew spiritually. When I did, things started changing for my internal life, started changing how I looked at things, started changing God's season for me. When I did these things, my seasons transitioned and I gained new gifts. When I did, my original purpose in being a police officer also returned. I didn't become a cop to chase people, to look at people in a bad way. I became a cop because my parents raised me to serve by example. I can go on and on today about that, but I'm sure at some point everybody wants to go to lunch, because if you get me talking about my parents, we'll be here a while. My parents have been an amazing people that through example taught us to serve. So I wasn't serving just the victims. I was serving the sinning, the drug addict, the homeless. And you know what, on a side note, if you start digging into their lives, the homeless drug addict, the abuser, the drunk, you find out they were victims too, and that's why they're like that. You have to love those people. If you don't love them, you're not going to be able to reach them. If you don't love them, you're not going to be able to reach yourself. One of those drug dealers I used to chase, I also had his kids in my dojo. Even when he lost custody, his grandma still brought him to me. And I kept on with him out of love. I asked him, hey, I haven't seen your kids this week. Where are they at? How are you doing? What are you up to? You know, he does the maintenance for my dojo now for free. Pipes break, he shows up. Don't even have to ask him. I don't know when last time I mowed the lawn. I didn't even know who was mowing it. I just show up and the lawn's mowed at the dojo. Got a little lot on the side. Couldn't find out he was doing it, not telling me. People who wanted to vandalize the building because I'm a police officer at the time when we first opened, and probably a few times after, he stopped them, wouldn't let them. Right? He said no. I don't know if that man is saved, but I know he is better than he ever was. He's gotten custody of his son, who's still underage, and his daughter, who was strung out at 16. Last I checked with him, is clean and living at home and going to VOTEC at 19 years of age. And it's because not just me, other people showed that man love, and it made a difference in his life. And I've talked to him about God, and I've talked to him about Jesus. He tells me he's accepted Jesus, and I like to believe that that's between him and God. But I would have never seen this. Maybe he would have never seen it. I don't know. God had plans for him, I think. Still has plans. He even came one day when when we first moved in, he came and volunteered to spend some time helping us get the house ready to live in. He went as far as he went up on top of the roof with an auger, was augering out a sewage system because it backed up that bad before we moved in. So the man, because I've still arrested him multiple times, put him in prison. But I did it and showed him love. Love for him, love for his family. I've checked on his grandma, I've checked on his kids, still do. I've even checked on his brother, who's still out there, I know well, not today, but last I saw him, is still out there doing meth and doing bad things. I've checked on him. And I'm not trying to brag, I'm just trying to give examples of showing love to people, the difference you can make. Getting sidetracked. So, verses 11 and 12, please. We're almost done. When I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put aside childish things. For now we see only a reflection as in a mirror, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I will know fully, but then I will know fully as I am fully known. I've been reading a lot about psychology. I don't know about a lot, but a lot more than I used to recently. One thing that stands out for me is the development and how it relates to a child. First, only looking after its own needs, its own satisfactions, because a child first loves itself. As the child grows and understands, it will love those that serve them: mom, dad, siblings, family, friends. You know, people that serve their needs. If that baby's hungry, they're going to love the people that feed them. As they grow, they will start loving those that are around them, people they see all the time, people they have fun with. As they start to mature, children will start loving others, developing crushes, developing friends, best friends. According to Paul, a spiritually mature person will love all people. So you'll have that timeline, just like the babies. Like a human baby, you'll have that timeline in your spiritual growth. You will love yourself. You will love others that serve you. You will love others that you encounter because you want them in your life. And hopefully the goal is we will love everybody, regardless. This love can be experienced here on earth is eternal. Got to know that. You got to open yourself up to this eternal love. Verse 13, now these three things remain: faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love. When we finally reach our Father's house, we will not have a need for faith or hope. Everybody understand what I'm saying? We will have not a need for faith because we will see. We don't have to believe anymore. He's right there. It has happened. We're standing in heaven. We're in our Creator's presence. We will have no need for hope because the things we have hoped for, our expectations will have been met. It would have been filled. It would have come to fruition. But the love we have will be internal. This love we have, if you open yourself to loving thy neighbor as yourself, as a little baby just worrying about their needs, you'll open yourself to this internal love that God gives us. Love is a distinct characteristic of our Father. I don't want you to take my word for it. We're going to go to John 3:16. I know everybody's familiar with that verse, and I quote it all the time, and I love it. Because you know what? He doesn't have to love us this way, but he has chosen to. For God loved the world in this way. He gave his one and only Son so that everyone who believes in him will not perish but have eternal life. God loves you so much, he gave his Son to be tormented, suffered, and died for you. Because he wants to spend forever with you. I can't even describe. I tried describing what forever is before and how insignificant our life is, and it's just impossible. There's not a measurement small enough to show you how just tiny our life is compared to eternal. Take this opportunity of this short time period we're here to love all as God has loved you. Let's see what God the Son, Jesus Christ, our Savior, says about how we should love. If we look at John 13:34 and 35, you don't have to turn to it, I'll turn to it for you. John 13:34 and 35. I give you a new command: love one another just as I have loved you. You are also to love one another. But this everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. Man, Jesus says we have to love one another. He commanded us to make that decision to love one another. Whether you like someone, you know, like is a feeling. Doesn't matter if you like someone, you have to love someone. John 15:9 and 10. As the Father has loved me, I have also loved you. Remain in my love. If you keep my command, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his love. Jesus Christ tells us love one another as he has loved us. You can't get much plainer than that, but I will go one step further. Matthew 22, 37 and 38. We're closing with this. Matthew 22, 37 and 38. So I want you to keep in mind, a Pharisee asked him, what is the greatest commandment? He said to him, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the greatest and most important commandment. The second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. So who's your neighbor? I've gone over this before. Your neighbor is everybody you meet. Anyone you're in contact with. You're to love them as you would love yourself. You're to love them as that little newborn baby that only cares about its own needs, loves itself. If we love a biblical love, we will obey the rest of the commandments. That's why that is the most important one. To love each other. Love all. If you would, bow your heads for me, please.